And
Okay.
so here we are again. A little bit late, nothing last week, I guess, but
No, some people were busy.
oh,
Yes.
what were you doing?
I wasn't, I said some people.
I know.
I mean, let's
If it
face it.
means
Some
if it means
people,
going out and having fun in the mountains, then
I,
I guess I was busy.
I guess, and nothing wrong with that.
No,
So, what's the saying? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed. But yeah, welcome to the Borderpool Journal. He's Bob, I'm Tom, and before we go on any further, just to let you know, you should hit the like button and the subscribe button so that you can be aware of when we're back on the air. Because we're not as regular as we should be, but maybe that's part of the deal. And I'm not talking about, our
Yeah. Yeah, and
daily ambulations. Is
that's
that the
right.
right word?
You sit back and you got to think that there's way too much. It's kind of like watching TV. I don't put the news on very often anymore because although there's a lot of new things that show up in the news, there's a lot of things that are just repeats
And stupid.
and stupid.
Yeah,
It's,
we don't have a lot of tolerance for stupid here anymore, It's just
I'm I'm afraid that's that old saying. Well, it's Forrest Gump, right? Stupid is as stupid does, but
yeah. Well, I know we talked about a bunch of stuff yesterday about what we're going to talk about today, and I tell you, it's like a hose pipe that's been cut. The stupid just keeps coming gushing out. We never run out of things to be critical of in our little over the fence talks.
oh, well, no, I don't understand a lot of it. I think COVID has unleashed a lot. You know, it, sitting around the house, not supposed to go out, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. And I wonder if it just made people reflect, sit back and think. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's not. And I think it's becoming very evident that it was a not thing.
Well, this is the Black Friday edition, so people who are watching are getting a double sale item here with us.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's even cheaper than it was before.
Oh, I can hardly wait. Where's the subscribe button?
Well, in actual fact, we have a new thing on our Twitter account. People can actually buy us a coffee if they think this program is worthwhile and to give us some support. So we're announcing the buy us a coffee. Um, I guess it's a pitch to help us defray costs here as we move forward. But it's worth a coffee to listen to us pontificate about things like there's riots in Dublin at the moment going on.
Yeah, well, I had seen something on the news about that, and I didn't know what caused it, but wow.
Well, somebody went around stabbing people,
Mhm.
and the police and the social media are full of information which isn't easy to figure out because some say it's about misinformation and about who the attackers were, but they don't want to release any information on it. Yet there are others are saying this is basically anti-immigration riots because the country's starting to discover there's a whole lot of folks there who are not exactly in the Irish mode, you might say. So there's that. Um, then you've got the news that the hostages in Israel this morning. We're seeing 13 Israeli hostages and 12 Thai nationals freed as Gaza hostage thing goes
From
on.
the- Mhm.
Uh, then you've got really dumb things going on in the economic world where you have the major engine of the economy in Europe called Germany. And Germany decided that they're going to borrow more money to pay off people with social programs because no one's working. So they're going into debt even more, much like our pals in this country. So you spend more money than you make, and that will fix things. So that's what they're doing, and the bond market is has gone kind of wonky in the markets because if you spend more money than you make or than you can pay back, trouble follows.
No.
Yeah. And then another news, it just came out. Of course, it comes out on a Friday afternoon, and it says that the U.S. manufacturing uh, has unexpectedly slumped, and jobs and prices are lower than they actually. So, for the first time in almost 3.5 years, oops, things are not going well. And I guess part of that is reflected by another headline this morning that people are losing interest in Black Friday, which they better not lose in our case because we need those coffees. Um, but Black Friday was getting bigger and bigger right up until the pandemic, and then and then since then it's been going south.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's not that they're losing interest in Black Friday per se. I think a lot of it has to do is there's just not that much spare money around.
No, you think?
In spite of trying to be bought off with our own money and borrowing money to buy us off with other people's money, uh, the pinch is here. There's a lot of people feeling uncomfortable with. Well, I mean, the one poll I saw on the news the other night was people are saying, "Well, Christmas is just around the corner," and yeah, I'm still going to celebrate, but I'm certainly not going to be buying the number of presents that I did last year, and I'm probably not going to be buying for everybody that I bought for last year. So I guess it's just, yeah, things are starting to squeeze.
Well, uh, my wife and I were talking about the business of Christmas cards, sending them out, and I'm thinking it's not the card that's expensive, it's the postage.
Mhm.
And it's you would send out cards before because I don't think email, greetings is really how you do, with your friends. But I think it's going to be a very limited number of Christmas cards going out from our household this year as a cost of it's a factor of the postage, which particularly overseas postage is over $2 now for
Well,
a Christmas card.
we've for a long time I've just done the email thing. I know it's not proper, it's not, I guess, correct, but we found that you can put a nice newsletter that tells what you did with the families and the like, and throw some pictures in, and you've only got so much weight, and then it goes up to the next class, and yeah, God, it just goes on. You're right. A lot of it is postage, and you're already paying for your internet, so why not just use that? You know, maybe,
Well,
maybe, maybe
yeah,
you throw some music in there to, like Santa Claus is coming to town, so when they open it up, they'll know it's a Christmas letter. I don't know.
yeah. I'm a little I see the card business is more people who don't necessarily have a computer, or
Mhm.
if you send them a greeting like that, particularly the ones that have the music and all that, a lot of time ends up in their spam box and never see it. It's just and so particularly folks who you see rarely or you really hold contact with them through long held friendships. A card there works better because you know where they
Mhm.
live, and yeah, you're
Mhm.
still talking to them 2, 3 times a year on the internet or by email, but it's still nice to have I don't know, it's I guess, and we're not talking about everybody who's on that list. I mean, obviously, I talk to each other all the time, so it's different. But I mean, people who you might have as a contact from overseas that you don't talk to all the time, or but you keep in touch. It's one of those
Mhm.
thin threads of keeping in touch.
Yeah,
Anyway,
well, I do have a couple of distance cousins that I've met through my genealogy hobby, and I'm perhaps a little sad to say I don't know their address, but I certainly know their email address. So that's usually how we keep in touch with them. But um, uh, yeah, there's a lot of things that have changed over the course of a couple of years on how you communicate and how you talk with people and how you view yourself, and probably good thought to think about, and maybe another broadcast on.
sure. No, well, we still have Christmas a month away, so we can certainly talk about that.
Ooh,
Another on the flyby news, as you called. The Americans have discovered that the government's rush to have people buy electric vehicles is not working out very well, because the cost is simply too high, and they're not all that environmentally friendly. Apparently, it's now become clear, because when you look at it dispassionately, take out the politics and the emotion of saving the planet, when you discover that the actual creation of these vehicles is far more dirty in terms of pollution to the planet, and far more expensive, and far more intrusive on the lives of people where the materials come from and so forth.
mm,
That actually has been a bill of sale that we should never have been conned into in the first place. Um, and
well,
so
yeah, I
it's
think
it's not happening the way the various G7 governments, are particularly the U.S., Canada, some of them in the EU, because the rest of the world doesn't give a rat's behind about this, frankly, from what I can tell, in looking at their priorities for countries outside of the little group we're just describing. But sorry, go ahead.
it is saying, we let the governments lead us down this path, and I think we've talked an awful lot about governments and how I think I saw a great quote on one of the flyby news articles today is that and they were referring to our particular leader, but the quote was, "This is a man that probably couldn't introduce a magnet to a refrigerator and have it stick." And this is the same kind of people that are trying to sell us on all sorts of things that they tell us is good for us, but it turns out that it's probably not, or there'll be another iteration somewhere along the line. So yeah, the old adage, if I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. This it doesn't help.
Well, here from the government. Well, that's a growth industry, certainly in Canada's government.
Mhm.
We are up, what I think they said 39% higher number of bureaucrats now in Canada than there was when the current government took over, or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's no proof that things have gotten better in terms of service delivery by that many more bureaucrats. In fact, one of the things that really got me nuts yesterday was they hired consultants on how to deal with consultants. That's absurd.
Yeah. Well, that that goes back to my old uh, conundrum that I have is who psychoanalyzes the psychoanalyst. But yeah, okay.
No, it's
And again, keeping in touch, I won't disparage any other government, but I just wonder how many of those consultants were friends of friends within the powers that did the hiring.
you,
You
are
don't
you
want to say
mean
that
corruption? Are you using the concept of corruption here?
corruption, nepotism, I don't know what you call it. I call it.
Well, you mean when people steal money from other people legally?
Well, I don't know if you can actually say that it's legal stealing. It's just out and out regusting.
Uh, yeah, we're only skipping over the
Highways.
topics this morning because you know we will go
Any
down a rabbit hole with this
any
stuff.
one of these, you're right, would lead us down so far. We'd probably be able to meet those poor Indians and on the other side of the world in that little hole they're stuck in if we went any deeper. But
I tell you, the other, you were talking to me yesterday about how you had to get a new card for your computer,
mhm.
and that falls in line with the next little bit of news I can tell you is that the chip maker NVIDIA, its shares have fallen because they're having trouble with their chips that are AI driven.
Oh,
Ooh. Yeah, the shares slumped on the market this morning because they have to pause launching their new artificial intelligence chip because it has to comply with US export rules, basically designed to keep the Chinese away from, learning things that the US doesn't want them to learn. The trouble is that they are going ahead with their own chips, which in some cases are better than the ones that they want to keep away from them. So the Chinese have said, well, you know what, the folks in our experimental labs, along with Huawei and so on, we're just going to build chips that we're going to sell to other people around the world, and the Nvidias of the world and the Intels of the world can go pound salt. So in fact, the export restrictions on them has done precisely the opposite. These people said, well, you know what? We're just gonna hunker down and start making our own chips. And whether you want to trade with us or not, who cares? We'll just do our own, and we'll sell them cheaper than what you can sell them for. And while you're busy worrying about things like ESG and whatever, we're just going to go ahead, and our researchers and manufacturers are going to make a product, and that's it.
yeah. Well, a couple of things that come with that is that once you try and ban something, there are ways and means put out by people who will make sure that that particular ban or particular export, whatever it is, will be found out anyway. I think it's called industrial espionage, and it usually involves money and making somebody rich. And the other side of that is that wasn't it just that long ago that India put some kind of vehicle on the moon, and the Chinese are got stuff that are on the backside. Why don't we just all work together?
Gee, what a concept, Bob. You should run for office.
Well,
No, run away from any office. Sorry, I meant.
run away from any office. I know that. Yeah, that would be. I'd still like to wake up in the morning and have a mirror in my house to be able to look, make
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
that
that's one of the things that's banned in the political arena. Politicians, if you go to their houses, they have no mirrors anywhere in the house.
that's right. That's right. Because even they can't stand to look at themselves.
I tell you, and I was reflecting on our chat yesterday, and looking again this morning at, speaking of people who can't look themselves in the mirror, is how politicians like to make up stuff, and then the next day, do a completely 180-degree turn on stuff they made up the day before. And this is related to the 2 hours of craziness that went on at the Rainbow Bridge at Buffalo on Wednesday over the alleged terrorist attack dreamt up by the news people. Uh, Between quarter to 12 and 2:30, it went from the world is ending to some crazy people drew a drove their car the wrong direction at 80 miles an hour into a border crossing inspection station, you know.
Which also apparently, according to the flyby news this morning, had something to do with a canceled Kiss concert or
Can
something.
you imagine that in you these people got so unhinged over a canceled concert by a rock and roll group or whatever the heck Kiss is these days? And that's like, oh, how old is the Kiss group? My goodness, they got to be in their 60s or 70s, those guys.
Well, I don't know. A couple things come to mind on that. One is that Vancouver will be the only stop in Canada for the Rolling Stone tours next year. So there you go. There's a group that's very long in the tooth, shall we say?
Oh well, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they don't come out in wheelchairs.
Well, it was interesting. I saw something on one of the social media platforms the other day, and I had to chuckle. And it was Willie Nelson and Keith Richards kind of sitting on a bench, obviously photoshopped or AI put together.
Yeah, yeah.
And the comment from one of these little balloons above their head that co-joined was, you know, these young kids have really got to get it together. What kind of world are they going to leave behind for us?
Well, but getting back to this Rainbow Bridge fiasco, I mean, I watched it and was following it along on Twitter for the BORDERPOL Journal, and it really struck me that there was a narrative that had to be driven right out of the gate, and the stuff that was being promulgated was so outlandish that even to the uninitiated, you go, that's just not possible. But I was particularly taken aback that the U.S. media, which in this case was Fox and ABC TV, this went on with all kinds of stories that just didn't happen. And the in one case is there was a guy on ABC who was a border security expert, and for our audience, he was waxing eloquently at what happens when you cross into the United States from Canada, how you first go to primary and then you go to secondary. And clearly, this car was stopped at primary and sent to secondary. And then there was this explosion. So, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Of course, it's complete nonsense because that never happened. There was no car from Canada. This was two screwballs who a Bentley, by the way, was the car. So they at least had a bunch of money, and they went on about this stuff without any verification on the narrative that the terrorists had hit the Rainbow Bridge. And I was thinking at the time, this is one twitchy news media we're dealing with. You can't believe anything they tell you anymore because something you know a little bit about, and you discover that they bring these so-called experts in onto these mainstream media. Oh, I'm going to tell you how you cross the border, and then attach that to a story that never happened. And within an hour and a half, it turns out that, well, it didn't happen that way. Actually, there was no terrorist. It was and you watch the foolishness that went on in the House of Commons, and on both sides of that discussion. Well, because we heard it on the news, it must be so, and the Prime Minister runs out of the House of Commons. Well, I'm going to check with my pals in Washington. We'll straighten that out. Boom, gone. It turns now today, neither one of those twits have anything to say about this, of course, because they've all been suckered, literally suckered by the media. And so it's a cautionary tale to all of us. Do not believe everything you hear or see on TV.
Well, we've talked about that before many times with the whole issue of there isn't really news reporting anymore. There is no journalism fact checking. It's whatever comes across the wire, and let's get it out there quick before somebody scoops us. And if we have to fact check later, well, okay, but yeah.
Yeah, but the damage is done because the
Yeah.
trolling that went on by these warmongers about, Canada's full is a haven for terrorists. between a quarter to 12 and 1:30, the amount of sludge on that was going through social media, particularly from the warmonger group, about how Canada is just full of terrorists, and we gotta build a wall from the Pacific to Thunder Bay, keep those terrorists out of the United States. I think, have you people lost your minds? Well, clearly, there was a narrative that had to be played because it was Thanksgiving. They've been pumped up over this constant drill about the terrorist element, and I'm not downplaying the fact that there's probably, out of the millions of people they've let into the United States through the southern border and even the northern border, there's no question there's probably some bad guys in there. That's just mathematically, the probability is pretty high. But they glommed onto this accident, or or maybe these people were suicidal. Who the hell knows? Uh, there was one fellow who was being interviewed live on social media just after it happened, who was saying, well, they saw this car doing donuts at this one of the 7-Eleven parking lots before this happened. I'm thinking, well, if they're doing donuts in a parking lot, they're pretty silly terrorists, because that's not what they do. But as an aside, we were conned for almost 2 hours into this by really irresponsible reporting by major U.S. media, and then of course picked up by the Canadian press, which obediently um, got into the echo chamber and started making the same stupid statements until suddenly discovered that nobody in the Pentagon or in the FBI or ATF or said, wait a minute, there's no evidence of anything here, and they're all disappearing like last year's snow. And suddenly, oh, it's just better talk to the New York State authorities because this is a traffic accident. Boom, like they put a pinprick in the balloon, gone.
Yeah, well, I keep thinking about the old Maxwell Smart series where they had to have the cone of silence.
Yeah, they all went into the cone of silence. Probably right.
Yeah,
You I never thought of that. The code of silence. Ooh.
yeah. And looking back on it, it was pure and utter comedy. But the unfortunate part is that they all thought that this was, well, maybe we better get this out there because maybe we'll hit somebody with their pants down, or holy smokes, this is going to be news. But you don't fact check, and then it becomes an echo chamber, and everybody listens and picks up on it, and as you get your security expert that tells you how do you go through primary and then to secondary, and then you drive your car at 100 miles an hour over an embankment, and
Yeah. Well, for the first I would say hour of that, it was total made up stuff, because it was a car from Canada that went running over the bridge. What are you talking about? The people who were actually on the scene being interviewed within 10 minutes, because social media, these citizen journalists are out there looking to make a buck, so they run out there with their cell phones and they're interviewing people. And this old guy was saying, look, no, this guy went flying down Main Street, missed the turn. He's in Buffalo. He's not in Canada. This is my knowledge, Buffalo, New York is still in the United States.
well, if it wasn't for sensationalism, people wouldn't really know what was going on.
I guess. But anyway, so that fortunately it wasn't what it was. It is it's a cautionary tale, to say, for all of us to stop sitting inside the echo chamber listening to this nonsense, regardless of what the topic is. Hold your, cool your jets, do some fact checking. Sometimes, it's like when someone says it offers you something that's too good to be true, then it's not right. Okay. So, or the adage. And I think in this case, it's just another example of we need to be smarter than the average bear on this stuff. and
Well,
question. And
and
if
there,
we're wrong, we say we're wrong. I mean, this is the other part. If you find out that you've been, you know, uh, questioning something that actually is, you know, true, then you have to be, dare I say, man enough to say, we're wrong. That particular thing is right. And occasionally you have to do that, but these guys don't climb down on any of this stuff.
no, 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 no. And I guess it goes back to a lot of if you had to admit you're wrong, what does that also bring into question? Does that mean that everything is wrong? Well, no, it means that that particular story was wrong, but it hopefully you learn from that and you can move on and before you jump into the water, you check that it's deep enough and there's no impediments in the way that you're going to injure yourself. And
Yeah. Well, a reckless driver driving up Main Street in Buffalo in the wrong direction, rather as opposed to a terrorist attack, is something that is, like I say, lousy reporting in the front end and a cautionary tale for us at the back end that we need to not jump before looking. And that's
Mhm.
so that's really it. And I'll leave it at that. Other than that, it's been a perfect week.
Well, I don't know. I saw in the morning flyby news that here in Canada we've had I can't remember what committee it was deem that because of our colonial heritage that we're forcing different people in this country to observe religious holidays like Christmas and Easter, and we really shouldn't be doing that. So there's another thing to think about. There's government agencies that are probably so over padded with people that are friends of friends or buddies with somebody that are making pontifications about things that, well, it bothers me. I'm sorry. you know
Well, I'll tell you just how nuts this is about pontification. One of the things that when we were going back to the bridge incident, that we said, look, you have to pay attention to what really happened. And just now, as we're talking, I got a guy writing me saying that we must be idiots because the people said it was a terrorist attack. You know, and what if someone does the same thing about on foreign policy? I'm looking at this just as we're talking. It the world really does have morons running loose. It wasn't. We're idiots because we said it wasn't what it was. It was a traffic accident. It wasn't a terrorist attack. But to say that is makes us idiots. Anyway, I rest my case.
anyway, it doesn't. Yeah,
It's so stupid.
it goes back to, and I won't get us censored here, I hope, but there was a line that was attributed to a Dirty Harry movie, and the line basically says, "Opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has one." And you're yeah, go ahead. You're entitled to have your opinion, but before you pontificate your opinion, you should try and back it up with some fact. And
Well,
yeah,
there's also the other version. You're entitled to your opinion, but not to your facts.
well,
So
don't confuse my mind with facts. It's already made up.
yeah, exactly. Boy, we could do a lot of it. We could do a whole show just on analogies.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
No, it's really been a wacky week. I have to say. That there's it's like I said, it's the hose pipe. Just cut it and it just gushes out. Next week when we do the show, there'll be some more craziness. I'm sure that we can review. Uh, and this and of course, as you say, the Human Rights Tribunal or Human Rights Commission in Canada, which is paid for by the federal government, by the way, it's a federal government agency who says that Christmas is a colonial thing and it's racist to have Christmas. Well, you know what? They can work at Christmas. I don't care. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm done
Yeah.
with these people. Well,
Well, and if you want to have your own holidays, and you know, I used to get a calendar, and I can't remember which calendar it was, and every day you turned over, it was national something or other, or international so and so day, and I'm thinking, my God, how do we get any work done in the Western world if everybody is celebrating a holiday at some point for something? Yeah. And then I think you've mentioned it before too, and like it started off as National Tiddlywinks Month, and then it became National Tiddlywinks Week, and then it's become National Tiddlywink Day, and then pretty soon we're going to have National Tiddlywink Hour. Just where does this nonsense stop? Yeah.
well, it's clear that the tempers are starting to get frayed. And look what's happened with these demonstrations, like,
Mhm.
Canada and the U.S. with the Palestinian issue, which is a very sad and complex issue. But when you've got high school kids that couldn't find Israel on a map, or Gaza if you show them, because they're so ill-educated, but they're
Mhm.
running around, blocking traffic, or beating up people who happen to have a kippah on their head. This kind of nonsense. This is really the mob mentality that these
Mhm.
goofballs have managed to create, and they don't know, and they're so stupid. I'm sorry, the authorities are so stupid. It's the best word I can come up with. They don't know, well, what should we do with these people? Anyway,
Well,
we'll keep that for another time, because we're
well,
butting
that's
up
right.
against
We're
our.
running short, but yeah. And then coupled with that, of course, is our I don't even want to say infamous, our current leader, who says that we have to let these people speak their minds. But then we go back a couple of years to when he actually invoked a War Measures Act to stop people from talking because they
Yeah,
disagree. Anyway, yeah,
yeah,
right.
I know. We're beating the proverbial dead horse on this one.
Mhm.
All right, well,
Anyway, yeah, it's been a thought-provoking talk.
it's it hasn't been very. Yeah, we're just wandering through the weeds on this one today. But
Yeah.
all right, well, I'll see you next week.
Hmm.
Um,
Have a good rest of the week.
you too. Stay safe, stay warm. To all our viewers and listeners,
Yeah,
tune in next week for more
fun and
enlightenment.
exciting.
All right, we'll see you, Bob.